Welcome. I'm so glad to have you guys with us here today for our final CARES seminar. Hopefully you all have taken advantage of all of the seminars that we have been able to offer through this program and bringing in specialists like Chris here to help small businesses. And welcome this morning or this afternoon to why sales strategy is so critical in the state of sales. My name is Betsy Coulter. I am with the Collin SBDC. And just a couple of things. Please know we'd love for this to be an interactive session. Ask your questions in the chat. Chris has graciously offered to let us interrupt him at any point. If there's something you'd like him to go back over or just expand on a little bit, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or use the chat. And then also this session will be recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, hopefully within just a day or so. So please take advantage. I know there's going to be a lot of information. You should all have a copy of the presentation. If for some reason you did not get that, just email me. You've got all our information and I'll get it to you. But let's go ahead. Let me go ahead and introduce Chris Goad, talk a little bit about 360 Consulting, the company that he helps co-found. Helping businesses achieve their sales goals is the passion of 360 Consulting. Their mission is to help companies transform their sales teams and processes to achieve all-time sales records. Prior to co-founding 360 Consulting, Chris Goad held roles at companies in the beverage, bottled water, coffee, and technology industries. And with those 25 years of real-world experience, Chris has managed to develop the ability to establish world-class sales organizations that deliver revenue and profit growth for small and large companies. And we are very excited to hear what he has to share with us today. So Chris, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Betsy. Well, I don't know who wrote that introduction, but it brought back some memories. So thanks for the nice introduction. And I just want everyone to know that this is definitely the case of saving the best for last. So, or at least that's going to be my mindset. So I hope you can embrace that mindset. Really, what we want to dig in on today is we're part of a larger organization called Sales Acceleration. And my slides are slow to flip, but Sales Acceleration is actually a company that licenses a business model. And we have 7 of us here in Dallas-Fort Worth that form 360 Consulting. We're a little bit unique in their world in that in almost every other market, they're just independent, men and women doing their work. But we've actually developed a firm to better serve our clients here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And it's really been a great benefit, I think, to us and to our clients. But these insights are really something that we gather through something called a sales agility assessment. And they're around 4 key areas. We're looking at sales strategy, sales methodology, sales analysis, and then their overall organization. So this data is pretty robust, 2,400 companies, which is a pretty substantial sample size, collected from all parts of the country, not just here in Dallas and Fort Worth, but or North Texas, but from all over the country. So some of the high-level trends and insights, while we're doing comparisons to year over year, in these assessments and these 4 key areas, we have people ranking themselves from excellent, average, below average to poor. 76% of the surveys taken in 2020 rated themselves as poor in these 4 key areas of sales and your sales organization for a business, which bodes well for us as consultants. But it's also interesting that if I look back in my career, when I was in a corporate role with companies like 3M and Dr. Pepper and Quaker Oats before they were part of PepsiCo and other various sorted companies in my career, I found many of the sales organizations that I assumed responsibility for needed some repair, needed to be rebuilt, needed to refocus to gain traction and to be and to achieve more success. So the top 5 areas that companies needed help are here. Prospect scoring. So 76% of the companies don't prioritize their prospects in any kind of scoring rating. 78% don't have a unique value proposition that they communicate to their customers or prospective customers or their team internally. 86% of the companies don't have what needs to occur in their sales process, which is really kind of like they don't have a defined sales process. And many companies do, but it's just not clearly defined. 88% really don't look at ROI when they're talking about how they spend their marketing budget. And, you know, that's an interesting number. And then 98% haven't really done a true competitive analysis of their strengths and their limitations. And if you kind of go back in older school terms, you've all probably heard the term SWOT analysis. Well, within that, you're also gauging yourself and your competitors. So digging a little bit deeper into those 4 categories. This is an eye chart, so I apologize for it. But if you broke each one of these areas down, sales strategy grade, 60% of the companies really rated themselves as poor and only 2% excellent. Sales methodology, 78% were rated themselves as poor and only 1% give themselves an excellent grade. 74% graded their sales analysis, kind of breaking down where they're successful, where they're failing, how their pipeline moves or doesn't move, as poor, and only 1% is excellent. And then their sales organization grade, 69% rated themselves as poor. And very few all across the line rated themselves, very few rated themselves excellent in these overall categories. So the 4, kind of ranking the 4 categories and key areas, 90% struggle with sales strategy. That's your industry positioning, your competitors and how you compare, your value proposition. 90% struggled with sales organization. That's staffing, hiring, training, and clearly defined roles and responsibilities, which you know, we're all probably, if anyone on the webinar today is trying to hire, whether it's sales or anyone else in your company, I'm going to suggest to you that it's more challenging than you might have thought be, you know, considering that we thought we'd you know, during the pandemic, we thought we'd have a bunch of people displaced on the street looking for jobs. Man, this is going to be a time to get talent for your company. And actually, I think it's even harder than ever before. 92% struggle with sales methodology. That's around territories, coverage, their sales process, and their CRM. And 94% struggle with sales analysis, goals, quotas, KPIs, reporting, comp plans, and incentives. So those are some pretty significant numbers. From a sales strategy standpoint, just digging a little bit deeper, 98% of them have not done a thorough competitive analysis. 84% don't have or can clearly articulate their unique selling proposition to their customers and or internally. And 82% really say they don't have a competitive selling proposition within inside their own companies that their sales team or others in the company clearly understand. And sales strategy, organizations that, you know, overall kind of rank themselves, 14% were poor, 51% were below average. And so once again, these numbers are kind of staggering if you look at them, that these are pretty fundamental things when you go to market. And companies are ranking themselves this low in these assessments. So we also, kind of a takeaway is purpose and value-driven organizations outperform the market by 15-1 and outperform their comparison companies by 6-1. We see companies promoting a lot of different products and features, but they're not really telling stories about how their product or service helps their customers and really helps their prospects. And that kind of goes back to purpose and value driven, rather than focusing on features and benefits and, oh, we're the, gosh, we're the, how many times you've heard that we're the best at this? And, we all know, like when you're looking for someone to provide a product or service for your business, you care whether they're a good company, but you don't care if they're number one or not. What you're looking for is someone who's going to best serve you, and compared to maybe some of your competitors or companies that are they really, really helping companies, and can they help you? And that's what we need to communicate to our prospects and our customers. So key insights into sales methodology. 92% said they don't track the ROI on their marketing spend or campaigns. 91% don't know the probability of closure for each sales cycle step. This is really interesting. Companies that we work with, one of the first things we do in our analysis, and before we get started actually doing it, making changes or helping them come up with new plans, we'll take a look at their current pipeline, and what's going to close in that pipeline. And it's shocking, probably shouldn't be after seeing it so many times, but in almost every situation, we look at a company's pipeline, and the deals that are in those pipeline are stuck, or they're not real, and they're never going to close. And we look at a pipeline and say, this should be a predictor of future new customers, future income. How can you project what you're going to do in your business and how you're going to grow if you don't have a good way to measure that? And 79% said they don't have separate, distinct sales territories. So again, interesting data. So some key insights on the lack of CRM usage. So 29% of the companies in this survey, have a database, but it doesn't identify who's who in their target market, right? So they've got a database, and we always say, hey, when we bring in salespeople for an organization, or as I've coached and managed salespeople all through my career, I've always had the saying, I don't want to hire salespeople and say, go get them. I want to hire salespeople and say, go get these, because these are our best target clients. 30% have a dashboard, but that dashboard doesn't really give them any indication of what sales success is going to be. 18% create forecasts, but they don't really adjust those forecasts based on their sales performance. So year over year, the forecasts tend to be kind of off target, because they're not really looking at trends, territories, individual performance, and adjusting those forecasts accordingly. 22%, say most people have defines, even if they don't know it, they have a sales process, and typically we can help them dig that out and really understand it. But only 22% actually documented their sales process. And so if you can't document it, you can't teach it, you can't hold people accountable to it, and you can't improve it. And then 22%, only 22% of the companies have performance insights, like real-time insights into current sales performance, not just on results, but key metrics further upstream, and to the furthest upstream as possible, to really help you manage to success. So this slide kind of threw me. Fewer companies use the CRM to actually manage their forecasting and their pipeline and their closing percentage rates. And this is one of the most critical components of a sales organization and a sales team, and really an overall business planner. Everyone in your business can benefit from using a CRM, managing a pipeline, using it as a forecasting tool, so that supply chains, inventory that you need to have, production capacity, resources, whether you're, a software company or you're a construction company. If you can forecast further into the future, then you can resource plan further into the future so that you have the people to go execute the things that you need to do in your business. That's why that slide threw me. So sales analysis, some key insights from sales analysis. 93% said they don't understand the sum of each sales rep's quota as it compares to their overall company goals. 79% said their sales metrics aren't clearly defined and understood by the entire sales team. And we're huge advocates of not just having this understood by the sales team, but leadership in the company, and as much of the company as needs to know it, because the more your organization understands what's going on in the way you sell and how you serve your customers, the better you operate your business and how they tie together why they need to do what they need to do in their areas of responsibility. And 77% said they miss a simple step of reviewing a compensation plan annually. One thing about sales compensation is we always tell clients when we help them come up with sales compensation plans and we share that with their sales team members, we don't know when, but compensation and sales will change. Business is a dynamic environment. And so compensation plans typically, especially when you have incentive-based compensation plans, they're going to have to change as your company changes, as your products and service change, as your customers' needs change. And so a compensation plan today might need to change next year. And that might be able to create more opportunity to drive more of the things that you want to do in your business. So just being able to review that with your sales team on an annual basis, have them sign off that they understand it, adds clarity, and clarity of task helps add to people's success. So these small to mid-sized businesses and how they compensate their sales team. So only 19% had a 50-50 split between base and commission compensation. 32% said they had a high base salary with a low commission. 22% said they had all base and no commission. Those are scary. 20% had a low base with high commission, and 7% had no base salary and 100% commission. We're advocates of trying to build comp plans that are more 50-50 base and commission. And we believe that that helps drive the best. It's not always 100% true for every company. But if you look at companies that are 100% commission based, they have a very difficult time recruiting talent. Once they get people on board, they might be able to maintain that talent. But, we call the 100% commission plan the lazy man's commission plan or compensation plan, because you hire someone, you're only going to pay them commission. It just takes the interaction, collaboration, and your need to help coach and manage those people kind of out of play, where the 50-50 plan is more a collaborative way to move people, to train people, to grow them and develop them, and ultimately have more success and drive what you're looking to achieve within your business. So sales metrics are lacking in most of the companies that we surveyed. The majority of the compensation plans really don't drive the real behaviors that they want, and often not rewarding the things that they want to the extent that they want to reward. And again, we think a 50-50 split type of plan, there are multiple ways to get to that, is the right thing. And we have real world examples to show where that's highly successful. So the organization, the key insights, once again, below and lower scores here. 92% said they don't provide training to address the gaps in sales competencies. 88% said they don't clearly communicate consequences for not meeting expectations and really don't enforce them. And 77% said they don't attend sales calls with their sales reps. Um, Again, a big miss. All of these things are things that we would work on with the client. So these companies, they rated themselves poorly on sales training as well. So, you know, if you're really looking to look at your sales team as a true part of your company, coaching, training, developing their skill set. Sales is a true profession. We define sales as delivering value for what someone needs. What could be more noble than that? And nothing happens until something's sold. So we look at these training areas and coaching areas and developing your sales team just as important as you would for coders in software, you know, people in production, people on your finance team, all the different areas. We want to develop those teams to make them the best they can possibly be. So there's a lack of sales training taking place. Leadership doesn't really know how to measure it and whether it's effective or not. Sales leadership is not establishing clear expectations and holding people accountable. And we think sales training is a critical investment to keep your staff growing and also developing them over long term so that they have great experience and we fill those knowledge gaps. No one asked any questions, Betsy, so I guess I went pretty quick today, but I wanted to take this opportunity to open up and see if we have anybody who these things spark something in their mind that they wanted to ask a question about.
You know, Chris, all the statistics and all the information is really wonderful. Just especially for some of these smaller businesses, you know, what is the most important area at this point? You know, all the different areas where businesses say they don't grade themselves very well. Would you help us understand, you know, as we break this down into pieces? Does that make sense, or is that possible?
I think it is. You know, it's a great question. So it's hard to say what's the single most important thing, Betsy, but you know, we look at 4 key areas as just critically important for your business. Number one, you really have to have a go-to-market strategy and a clearly defined value proposition. And what does that mean? Who do you sell to? What do you sell them? What do they expect from you? And what's your real value to those target customers? Clearly understanding those things, that's a key pillar. People, having the right people on your team, being able to coach and train those people to success. People are probably one of the biggest things that we work with on the customers that we serve. Building the right team, having the right people. Number 3 on the key pillars is really having a clearly defined sales process, from defining who's a lead, who's a prospect, who's in your pipeline, and how you actually walk a potential customer down the path to becoming a customer. Or more importantly, if you have customers that you're repeat selling to, how do you manage those relationships and really measure that, truly measure it? And then the 4th one is just really having a plan of how you manage sales. It's one of the things that we run into all the time, and I ran into it in my corporate career, which served me very well, frankly. But you know, I mentioned some of the nice big companies that I worked for in the past. Many of those companies, I was able to put programs in place to manage this, how to manage sales that just weren't there. And so many business owners are passionate about their business, but to get to the next level, they have to be able to translate all of that into the people who are going to help them continue to grow in their sales team. And how to manage those folks is really one of the important cogs. So I'd say those 4 key areas. I couldn't pick one that's, you know, the single most important, but all 4 of those areas are equally important.
When you mentioned a SWOT analysis, which obviously we're very aware of here, and do you mind though just expanding a little bit, because that gets a little deeper in under that value proposition part where they understand, and also just as I do that, just letting everybody know that I have made the adjustment and everybody is able to unmute themselves and speak if you prefer that, ask any questions. But yeah, Chris, if you don't mind, just share a little bit, not only what a SWOT analysis is, but maybe, a little bit more information about how to make sure they do a thorough SWOT analysis.
Yeah, so SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So when you sit down and you start that sounds so simple, but if you get your team, your leadership team and your sales team in a room and get on a whiteboard and you start to break those things down, you're gonna start to dig out things that will really help you understand who you truly serve, where your threats may be coming from, where your biggest opportunities lie, and where your weaknesses are. Because weaknesses, while we don't necessarily look at that as, well, I don't want to spend a lot of time on my weaknesses, you may be weak in certain areas, and that may change or make you pivot on the kind of targets and customers that you serve. So that process can be extremely valuable, and we always say it's evergreen. So what we do today is going to change. We live in a dynamic world, so business doesn't stay the same. Good gosh, how many of us could ever have even thought about or conceptualized what happened to us in 2020? And so if you haven't done anything since 2020 or before, taking the time to say, man, what has changed in our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? What's happened in our business? What things do we need to change to really stay focused?
Perfect, thank you. Just to kind of help people, and we do have some questions coming in, so let me start. Caesar says, for a new company with no retrospective insights, what are the key components of establishing a foundation for future insights for goal setting and process improvements?
That's a great question. So, hey, the great opportunity when you're starting up is you don't have any bad habits that you have to break. So you can start with a clean slate and you can build a solid plan from the very beginning. And I would go back to what we talked about in CRM, Betsy. If you actually capturing data, you have a CRM that's helping you with KPIs, and you're measuring those things, then you're going to be able to glean data from those KPIs to help you improve. And so you might have to make some assumptions when you're in a startup mode. You may have to assume that, well, gosh, I assume these are the best customers, best targets that we can serve, but that may change. You can assume that you're going to close this % of deals that you get. You can make some assumptions, but if you're measuring those things, those assumptions start to become reality over time. So you're no longer guessing, you're now leaning back on trends and data that will help you better project in the future. And we're big believers in doing that.
Oh, perfect, thank you. And another question here, what's a good time frame before assessing if a sales strategy is effective? 1 month, 6 months?
Yeah, well, that's a little bit of a moving target. So we have companies that have short sales cycles. We have companies that have mid-range sales cycles, and we have clients that have longer sales cycle. I was just with one this morning that is venturing into an endeavor that these sales cycles are going to be very long. Once again, I would lean back into your KPIs, because you can measure success against what you're doing, not from when you close a deal or realize revenue, but the activities and assumptions that you're building into that process to determine whether it's working or not. So an example would be, if we think that we need, these are our prospects and we're going to convert them, we're going to convert them into sales cycle, and that sales cycle is going to be a very long period of time. Well, you can say, in the early stages, I'm going to measure how many deals are coming into my sales cycle or my sales funnel, as my key measurement of success, because I know results are going to be trailing. So results are often, it's too late, right? Whether I won a deal or whether I closed a deal, by the time that happened, I can't manage that. I can only manage all the steps further upstream. So building those metrics early on and looking at those trends can tell you and help you project future success, even if your sales cycle's long.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question through the chat. Can you use an example, like say a coffee shop? How would you do a 50-50 compensation processes, sales management, things of that nature?
So when we say 50-50 plan, what we're talking about is your incentive compensation and your fixed compensation are on about the same benchmark. So, you know, coffee shop, that's interesting, but you could say that you're going to pay on the revenue produced, and you're going to build a plan. So what we try to do is we try to benchmark, number one, what amount of sales do we want to create from a sales resource? What is the goal? Forget about the person for a moment, but if I have, for every salesperson I want them to produce X amount of revenue. And then you go back and say, that is going to mean X to me in profit. And of that, I'm willing to pay this much money to get that much revenue and that much margin. Once you have those things clearly defined, now you can start to say, well, if I'm willing to pay this much, how do I split that up between base compensation and incentive compensation, and start to drive that plan in that way. So it kind of starts with the end in mind and work backwards to come up with a plan.
Wonderful, thank you. For those of you who've asked the questions, please feel free to speak up, or if you want Chris to expand a little bit on that, we'd appreciate it. Anybody else? Now's your chance. There are no bad questions, so please feel free to either unmute yourself and share, or even a specific question about your business. That would be fine too.
Hi, Betsy. This is Caesar. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Caesar.
Hi. Thanks for the presentation, and appreciate the time for the question. I actually had another question regarding the value and purpose-driven organizations. Can you give examples of a B2B or another type of organization that we might be able to mimic using, this type of marketing or that type of value and purpose-driven, I guess, method of approaching their customers?
Sure. Well, so there are lots of different ways to describe this, but you can take companies like Walmart. Walmart wants to be the lowest price with the best inventory in stock ready right now. General Motors, as an example, they're all about delivering great value for the vehicles that they have. BMW, I could just go down the line, right? They have a vision other than profit, right? So it's obviously everybody who's in business is in business to be profitable. If we were not profitable, we would not be in business. But you've got to find the right thing for your business that connects with your customer, and it really starts with that value proposition and understanding your key customers, what they expect from you, and what value you can deliver to them. And if you're focused on delivering that value, then all good things will happen for you in the process. There are a couple of books, well-known books that I still lean back into, and they're both Jim Collins books. One is Built to Last, which is the original Jim Collins business book of notoriety, anyway. And then the other is Good to Great. And I think that those two books would be good reference points for you, Caesar. But really understanding what value you deliver to your customers and having your organization truly buy into that, so that you're living that every single day and you're delivering that value for your customers.
No, that makes sense. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's actually the path I was heading down, and that was great confirmation. Thank you.
Awesome. Great question.
Wonderful. Anybody else? Or if you're trying to unmute, oh, there you go.
Oh, am I unmuted?
There you go,
Okay.
Jackie. Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So back to the quick question with the 50% compensation on a coffee shop. Would that bring in the employees? I'm trying to think of how that would work if they only received $6-7 an hour, and then the rest is in compensation, you know, in a compensation. Would that not deter the baristas for being in the job?
Yeah, well, coffee shop's an interesting one. I would tell you that most of the world that we play in, Jackie, is in the B2B world. But I think there are analogous things that go into this. Number one, if you're whether you're in a coffee shop or whether you're selling software or whether you're selling construction, if you have a business where you want your people to sell and drive more revenue, I can't answer whether that's the right thing for a coffee shop or not. I'm a huge coffee drinker and I love coffee shops. I was actually in the coffee business for a period of time. But you have to strike the right balance. So maybe 50-50 in that scenario might not be the right plan. This is more for a B2B world. However, it doesn't mean it couldn't be the wrong plan, because you might find that if you build the right compensation plans, that your baristas are engaging with their customers at a higher level, explaining to them the different offerings that you have. And if you're really wanting to incent more sales, serving customers faster, not pushing things on customers that they don't need or want, but really asking them questions, understanding it could be a great way to drive, not just revenue, but customer interaction, which I would believe in that world would be very powerful. Most companies that we work with, if we're trying to move into a 50-50 compensation plan, we have to also look at the sales cycle of the business. So if we bring someone in and the sales cycle is longer, this would not be true in a coffee shop. But if the sales cycle is longer, we might build some kind of a guaranteed plan for their ramp up period to their kind of full rate of earning commission. So there are different ways. We've got different methodologies that we worked successfully with customers on to implement these kind of strategies. And maybe in the case of a coffee shop, maybe it's not pure commission on every single cup. Maybe your incentive plan is more around the performance on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, or something that you'd be building the plan to drive the behaviors that you want and delivering the value to your customers in the best way that you possibly can to serve them.
That was a great answer. Thank you. That made much more sense.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
This is Caesar again. If that's okay, if nobody else has a question, I have a question on marketing spend, if that's okay.
Of course.
Sure.
So looking at a slide early on, I come from an R&D background and been doing some marketing, some sales. But question on marketing spend: what proportion of sales would be considered reasonable for businesses to go back into marketing? And the other way around is there a rule of thumb on marketing spend, to get a certain amount of sales, a fraction, a ratio, or a dollar amount?
That's a great question, Caesar. I will, I'll first tell you that I'm not an expert on marketing. We obviously work with companies on the things that they need from a marketing standpoint. to generate leads, to nurture their customer base, to nurture their prospect base. And you're going to find that if you Googled that, you would get some answers, right? X% of revenue should be dedicated to marketing. Although I don't really buy into those hard and fast rules, because I think every business is different. What I would suggest to you from a marketing standpoint is marketing, depending on your business, usually has a tail on it. And so we find companies that that turn the spigot on and off. They'll do something and then they'll stop. There's not continuity in the plan. We call those random acts of marketing. Oh, I'm going to try this. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try this. Oh, that's not working. I'm going to stop that. So what we encourage our clients to do, and we help them with usually using some additional outside resources, because we're not really pure marketing folks. But we usually advise our clients to, number one, come up with a plan, really identify the things that you need to do from a marketing standpoint, and we can help with that. And then the second thing is you encourage companies to build a plan and invest and commit to investing in that plan for a longer period of time, even if you're mildly changing and tweaking it, and then truly measuring what's going on in that marketing plan, so you can shift your plan based on what's working and what's not working. So it's a long tail kind of a process. And I always tell clients, hey, if we're going to put together a marketing plan, let's think about a budget that we could be comfortable spending, over 2 years, rather than I'm going to do this for 3 months and see what works. I probably didn't specifically answer your question, but
no, I'm quite all right with an abstract answer. I mean, I wouldn't call it abstract. It's actually a great structure to consider. But that actually brought up something else. You had mentioned we were talking about marketing, but you were also talking about sales and sales development. Is there also a rule of thumb on budgeting for sales force development, for sales development? What are some minimum things we should look at in order to keep performance growing throughout the years?
Yeah. Once again, I don't know that there's a benchmark that I would recommend as far as % of revenue or anything like that. What I would suggest is, whether you're using sales training, whether you have your own inside sales training methods and coaching methods, whether you're using a combination of those things, I would encourage companies to continually look to improve their team and have some continuity in the plan to develop their team. And if you're using outside resources for that, great. If you have inside resources for that, great. But investing in your people, whether they're salespeople or production people or finance people, I think investing in your people over the long term, has great benefit to any business. And sales is often missed in that equation. So look for ways to, and these don't have to be huge investments, but these don't have to be huge percentages of your revenue investments, but continually coach and improve your team. And by the same token, hire the right people, build plans for those people, make sure they're part of your culture. And then if they're not part of your team, make that decision sooner rather than later, because if you're going to invest in people, you have to invest in the right people. And so I think it's more about really having a continuous improvement plan for that team. And then probably the biggest thing is just making sure that you got the right people on that team.
That's perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate all the feedback. That's it for me. I'll stick around in case somebody else has a question, but I won't bug you anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caesar.
Oh, no worries at all. But yeah, does anybody else have a question that's come up through the discussion that we're having? Well, if not, Chris, do you have any kind of parting words for us? There's so much great information and so many statistics. Could you maybe share just a little bit about where all of that came from to help us understand it a little better?
Yeah, you bet. So, one of the reasons that these numbers are, they look pretty abysmal, right? When you look at them, wow, gosh, everybody's really broken. Well, you have to remember that people who take this survey are typically people who have raised their hand and said, it's not working, right? So while the data is pretty significant, once again, I think if you look at companies that are even, they think, they're growing, oftentimes companies, they're functionally dysfunctional when it comes to sales. And it's one of the reasons that we do what we do. We love helping companies build winning organizations, sales teams, and we love helping individuals as well. So the data really comes from all over the country. It's from that sales acceleration survey. So the numbers are probably a little bit heavier slanted to the negative, because these are people who definitely have raised their hand and said they need help. But it also has a blend of people who haven't raised their hand or who didn't decide to work with someone, but just wanted to take the survey. So it's really good data. And I would tell you that, once again, before 360 Consulting, I built a pretty nice career out of rebuilding sales teams and making them functional. And the same things are true with companies that I work for, like 3M and Dr. Pepper and others.
Yeah, so many of the same tools and the same rules apply all the way down the line.
Well, yeah, and, that's why we do what we do, Betsy. We love it. So
there you go. Well, guys, if you don't have any other questions for Chris, we will just a quick reminder that this webinar is recorded and will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. I know we had a couple of late participants. If you missed anything or just wanted to go back and listen or look through some of the statistics again, feel free. You also have a copy of the presentation. But we are very grateful that you joined us today, and we are extremely grateful that Chris gave of his time today. So if there are no other questions, we will just wish everyone a wonderful Wednesday afternoon, and y'all take care.